오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 낮에는 따사로운 인간적인 여자.
I assume that all of you know this music video. It popularized K-pop around the world. And there is an iconic phrase in its lyrics that you might have heard a lot. 오빤 강남 스타일. Let's check this sentence. As you learned before, this 니은 is contract version of topic markers, 는. We usually use this form in spoken language, just with 니은. But have you ever thought about it in this way? If I replace 는 with 가, is it possible? Does it make sense? Does it sound natural? This might be confusing. And I'm sure it's not the first time for you to be confused with stuff like this, 는 and 가. Since you started to learn Korean, do you have experience when you were not sure when to use either 은, 는, 이, or 가? And if that's your case, today's lecture is for you. Hi, welcome to Jeonghyun's class. Happy Korean class again. Today's topic is don't get confused with 은, 는, 이가 from now. It's the first lecture of this series. Though this may be the basic part of Korean language, it's also the trickiest part. But I'm here for you to help you deal with it, and let's get started. After this lecture, you will be able to make natural sentences with basic usage of 이가 or 은, 는. And secondly, not just making the natural sentences, but you also be able to explain the basic principles that distinguish between the cases when 이가 or 은, 는 are used. And we will only cover the basic principle instead of whole thing in this lesson because it's too complex to understand and cover everything about 은, 는, 이가 all at once. There are so many usages of them. So, for today, we will focus on basic principles which is commonly used and which foreigners really need to know. Before we started, let's review what we learned before quickly. Starting from the easy one. When do you use 은 and when do you use 는? Here's a question for you to help retrieve the things. Try to pick the correct one. Did you get it? Okay. Okay, for the first sentence, it's 저는 학생입니다. It's 저는. And the answer for the second one, 한국 사람은 빨라요. Korean is fast. I'm a student. Why is that? It's because if there is no 받침 in front of the particle, well, then we use 는. So no 받침, we use 는. And if there's 받침 like this, 미음, then we use 은. How about for 이 or 가? It's similar. Let's check. 너는 가수 가 아니야? Is the answer. Aren't you a singer? And 이름 이 뭐예요? What's your name? It's the answer. Why? Because if there is no 받침 in front of it, we use 가. Like no 받침, we use 가. And if there is 받침, we use 이. It's really simple rule, isn't it? Okay. And the second one we also learned some differences between 이가 and 는. And basically, 이가 is subject particles that shows the subject of the sentence. Let's see the example. 정현이가 밥을 먹는다. 정현이 is eating rice. or 정현이 is just eating. In this case, 정현이 is subject and 가 shows that oh yeah it's subject and 정현이 is eating rice. The function of 가 is this. Second sentence. 유재석 씨가 집에 갔다. 유재석 씨 went back to his home. And similarly, 가 is showing 유재석 씨's subject and 유재석 씨 went back to his home. So simple. And unlike the topic markers, the subject particles doesn't contain the meaning of contrast or emphasis. Well, speaking of topic markers, let's say 은는 is topic markers that shows the topic of the sentence. Yeah, it's saying it's topic markers, but sometimes a topic and subject is same, so it also shows the subject of the sentence. And sometimes it contains meaning of contrast and emphasis. Let's check the example. 저는 학생입니다. I'm a student. In this case, it seems like just it shows a topic and subject of this sentence. 저는 학생입니다. Simply. But it might have meaning of I'm a student, but others not. Like she's a teacher and he's a teacher, but I'm a student. If you use 는, it might contain the meaning of it. So if there's no context over here, so the contrast meaning is not prominent in this sentence. But on the second sentence, the context is really clear. 양이 많지만, the 양 is quantity. If the quantity is a lot, 야 가격은 너무 비싸요. The price is too expensive. By using 은 here, it gives a nuance that 양이 많지만 the quantity is a lot. I like it. But the price is too expensive. I don't like it. This 은 gives the contrast like that. Question. Are they interchangeable between them or not? Well, sometimes yes and sometimes no. Sometimes they're interchangeable. For example, if I replace this 가 with 정현이는, it still means the same. 정현이가 밥을 먹는다 and 정현이는 밥을 먹는다. It still means 정현이 is eating rice and 정현이 is eating. And for this one, it's the same. If you replace it with 제가, yeah, we use 제 when we use 가, right? We learned that, right? So 제가 학생입니다. It still means I'm a student. So there's no significant meaning different, and they still sounds natural. But how about this? If I replace it with 가격이 너무 비싸요. 양이 많지만 가격이 너무 비싸요. Well, 만 is giving the contrast feeling, but it says 이, so it doesn't sound natural. So, sometimes it's interchangeable and sometimes it's not. Unfortunately, there is no absolute rule that explains the whole thing, the usage of 이 or 이가 or 은는, and the native Korean use them unconsciously. So, what the foreigners learner should do? Well, the best way to distinguish them, the best way to train it, is to read many sentences as possible, and to listen to many sentences as possible, and practice it. It's the basic way to master them. Then you will know automatically when to use 은 and when to use 이 or 가. But not just with this. There is still tendency when the 은는 or 이가 are used. There is a nuance difference, and sometimes it became awkward if you replace 이가 with 은는 or vice versa, right? So, if you do it with knowing the tendency, the way to master 은는 이가 would be much easier. So today, I will tell you three simple principles that will help you to use them in a natural way. All right? Then let's get started. Principle 1. Generally, 은는 is used for 이다 sentences. Let's see the example. 나는 미국 사람이다. I'm American. In this case, it's end with 이다. So it's 이다 sentence. So we use 는 here. Generally, we use it like this. And second one, 아이유는 가수예요. Oh, it's not 이다. Well, it's variation of 이다. The verb ending can change depending on the formality and the tense. In this case, the formality is changed, so it changes it to honorific. So it's still 이다 sentence. So 아이유는 가수예요. 이다 sentence, so we use 는 usually. Let's see this. 정현 씨는 한국 사람입니다. 입니다 is also honorific of 이다, so it's still 이다 sentence. 정현 씨 is Korean, and so we use 는 here. And as it said, there is no 100% rule, so there is an exception. Sometimes there is an exception. 정현 씨가 한국 사람입니다. It also makes sense, actually. 정현 씨, we used 가 instead of 는 here. Well, in this case, 이가 is used to emphasize the first noun. In this case, to emphasize 정현 씨. I will explain it more on the next slide. Principle 2. 은는 for emphasis on the back, like verb, adjective, or 이다 sentences, and 이가 for emphasis on the front, like subject. Keep it in your mind, and let's check the sentence. There are similar sentences here. 진은 노래를 잘해요. Jin is good at singing. Suga is good at rapping. 진이 노래를 잘해요. Well, same. Jin is good at singing, and Suga가 랩을 잘해요. Suga is good at rapping. Well, it sounds the same. Is there any difference? There's slight difference. We use 은는 to emphasize the back part here. And we use 이가 to emphasize the front one. So in this case, it means Jin is good at singing, and Suga is good at rapping. The emphasis on he's good at singing and good at rapping. Do you get it? But in this case, it gives a nuance that Jin is good at singing, but the point is on Jin. And maybe the other BTS member or the other people are not good at singing. Maybe Jin is only one, or just few people who can sing well. Same on here. So basically, it's saying especially Jin is good at singing, and especially Suga is good at singing, because 이가 is used for emphasis on the front. All right? Let's check other examples. 누가 공연을 했어요? Who did the performance? 블랙핑크가 공연을 했어요. Blackpink had the performance. In this case, someone who asked the question want to know who did the concert. 누가? Like, so it means he wants to know the subject. So he answered with 가, emphasizing subject. 블랙핑크가 공연을 했어요. So yeah, here's the answer. 블랙핑크가 공연을 했어요. Emphasizing Blackpink. That's why he used 가 on here. How about this? 지민이는 지금 뭐예요? What is 지민 doing now? 지민이는 지금 연습하고 있어요. 지민 is practicing now. In this case, the question, someone who make the question want to know what 지민 is doing. The back part of the sentence, the verb and adjective part of the sentence. So he answered it with 는, emphasizing the back part. 지민이는 지금 연습하고 있어요. Do you get it? You want to know what he is doing? Do you want to know the back part? Okay, I will emphasize the back part. 지민이는 지금 연습하고 있어요. Yeah, it's what this principle means. And we will practice it more in the Zoom lecture later on. Okay? And okay, this is the last principle, principle 3. 이가 for a new subject and 은는 for the subject you already know. In a fairy tale, you can see this principle really clearly in a sentence. So let's check the example. 옛날 어느 마을에 착한 농부가 살고 있었어요. Once upon a time or in the past, 어느 마을에 in a village, a good farmer was living or lived. And we use 가 here because it's the new subject. 착한 농부 hasn't mentioned before, right? It's the first time. And on the second sentence, 착한 농부는 정말 열심히 일했지만 가난했어요. The good farmer worked hard, but he is poor. And we use 는 on here. Because the subject is the subject we already know. 착한 농부 is already mentioned here, so we already know. So we use 는 here. And on the second sentence, 하지만 농부는 행복했어요. But the farmer was happy. We already know the subject here, 농부, farmer, so we use 는 here. So simple, isn't it? First, 가, second, third, then if there are more sentences, then we use 는. So easy. And let's solve the quick quiz. 오빠 강남 style, which is right? Well, yeah, we always say 는. 오빠는 강남 style. I put 이야 here because if it says just 오빠는 강남 style, well, it's the 이다 is omitted here, so I put the variation of 이다 here. So 오빠는 강남 style. Why is that? Can you tell me the reason? Well, we can say many principles, but in principle 1, we say generally 은는 for 이다 sentence. So we can say the principle 1 for this, and also we can say principle 2, 는 for the back part of the sentence, and 이가 for the front part of the sentence. So in this case, Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style is the title of the song, and the whole lyrics is about what Gangnam Style is. So we say the lyrics want to emphasize Gangnam Style rather than oppa. So according to principle 2, so yeah, 는 sounds more natural in this case, I guess. And how about the second one? 누가 밥을 다 먹었어요? Who did have all the rice? 정현이 밥을 다 먹었어요. 정현이 had all of the rice or all of the food. Which one is right? Yes. The question wants to know who and the front part of the sentence. So, emphasizing the front part and subject, we should use 가 here. It sounds more natural. According to principle 2. E가 for emphasis on the front. On the front. Okay? What's the third one? RM은 지금 뭐예요? What's RM doing now? RM 지금 드라마를 봐요. RM is watching drama right now. Which one? Similar thing. And hint for this? Yeah, that's right. The question wants to know the back part of the sentence, the verb and adjective parts. So the answer, if you make emphasis on the back, it sounds more natural. So we use 은 here. According to principle 2, 은 for emphasis on the back. Okay? Last one. 송중기가 어제 드라마를 찍었어요. 송중기 film drama yesterday. 그래서 송중기 오늘 쉬어요. So 송중기 will have a rest today. Which one? 가 or 는? It's yeah. Here's we use 가 because 송중기 is firstly mentioned, and this time secondly mentioned. So we use 는. According to principle 3, 이가 for new subject, 는 for the subject you already know. So simple, isn't it? Yeah, it's all for today. Let's do the summary quickly. Principle 1, generally 는 for 이다 sentence. Principle 2, 는 for emphasis on the back, 이가 for emphasis on the front. Principle 3, 이가 for a new subject, and 는 for a subject you already know. Yeah, good job guys. In upcoming Zoom lecture, we will practice more sentence with 는, 이가. So please review what we learned before the class. Okay? Yeah, it's really all for today. And thank you for your attending and see you in the Zoom lecture. Take care. Bye.